Hello, Flatbed team. Okay, today we're going to do a recap from the Flatbed portion of the drivers meeting for those of you that missed it or want to recap some of this. So, first off is the good job portion, customer service, which is extremely important to our business. That is an aspect that we're doing great at. A lot of positives from Stage Right, Defuku, Bandit, Snowmakers. We've done some great work with them over the last few months, so please keep it up, guys. Same with DCL; they're very busy right now, and nothing but praise about the drivers and our team. So keep up the good work. We just got to clean up some things on the way. So we'll dive into some ugly stuff here. Improper load securement violation that we received. A piece came off an equipment assets load and struck a car behind us. 21 points and $3,174 worth of damage. I've seen this before where it's just random stuff on the trailer. We got to be checking that, know what's on our trailer, and make sure everything's secure. The bigger takeaway to me is how lucky we've been with tarps and how many we've lost over the years. Some more examples of extra stuff being on our trailer that needs to be secured. But I want to talk more on the tarp aspect of this. We've lost. I feel like we're losing 3 or 4 tarps a year when it should be zero. It should never happen. Tarps need to be strapped down. They need to be double checked every time on every pre and pro strip. They need to be double checked during your in trip inspection. We should never be losing these. I mean, it's the same as losing freight. So this is the first time that we've really lost freight and had a cargo securement violation with something flying off our trailer. But I mean, numerous times we've lost tarps. Moving on, replacing bad tarps. If you have bad tarps, take them off, put good ones on. If you can't, for some reason, maybe leave a note on the bill of lading, let dispatch know. Make sure you're rolling up your tarps the correct way, the correct amount of folds, 5 folds for steel and lumber tarps. If you do 6 on a lumber tarp, then it's going to look like a steel tarp. If you need help with that, let me know. We got some videos. Tarp padding, not only losing tarps is expensive, but ripping tarps is expensive. So make sure we're using as much padding as we can. Should have plenty of blankets and extra padding in the boxes. Ensuring there's enough, along with ensuring your tarps are secure, ensuring that you have the right amount of tarps when you depart is also part of your pre and post trip. The cost on this, I'll skip to the tarps part since we're talking about it already. Steel tarps are $235 per tarp right now. 370 for 8-foot tarps and 452 for 10-footers. So when we rip holes in them, that's how much it is costing us. Straps, $9 per strap for 4-inch. Step decks are 12, 2-inch or 12. So, if we secure a whole load of stone and don't do any padding, looking at over $100 worth of loss. So we just need to stay on the padding. Padding. It also protects our freight, our customer freight. Extreme trailers. So I think most of you, if you've been here longer than a month, have seen these extreme step deck trailers with the noses smashed in. Pay attention when you were hooking up to these. Make sure they're high enough. There's some things you can do and make sure they're high enough when you're putting them down, or when you're dropping them, and putting landing gear underneath them. But really, it boils down to paying attention when you're getting hooked up. Okay? From an efficiency standpoint, we love these trailers because they are lighter. I mean, they're also a very well built trailer. So we are going to be buying some 53-foot flats. Some of them will stay open, and some of them will become Conestogas that are extremes, which will allow us to haul more weight. Chipper securement. So I had a couple of incidents over the last year where the tongue on the back piece in particular came off the block. So it is good practice to strap the tongue of the chipper to ensure that doesn't happen. The degree of the angle of the chains. So a 30-degree angle of securement is preferred. It's creating a backwards and forwards pull along with a downwards pull if you do it that way. Um, if you're if you're less than that, then you're just pulling backwards and forwards and not getting any downward pull. At least 4 tie downs on machines over 10,000 pounds. If it's the front machine, then you would need 5 points of securement. Hook chains back onto the chains, not the stake pockets. You know, we're always talking about this. Those stake pockets, they break. The welds could give out. So, or if you are in an accident and a car hits the side of your trailer, it could break the stake pocket and lose your securement. So just things to think about. You know, best practice for northern is hooking the chain back or onto the chain and then wrapping any excess around the binder and bungeeing that up. Oversized shipments. Remember to sign your permits. We did get a violation earlier this year of someone forgetting to do so. Read your permits beforehand, guys. I know sometimes we're rushing and they don't come until late, but make sure we're reading through that. We're not taking any shortcuts. We're following those permits. Ask questions if you don't understand the permit. Call your coworkers too if you have any questions on how to handle these oversized loads. Um, one flag at each front of each corner, one at the rear corners, and any additional flags at any point of additional protrusion from the load width. So we're doing more oversized stuff. It feels like this year with the building materials, and right now Moran's going. So if you got questions from this, you know, ask dispatch, or you know, we can direct you to some of the veteran drivers that have a lot of oversized experience. Next strap, preventing forward movement. This is one of the most important things we talk about, guys. You know, one, it, you know, we talk about this because it's to protect the driver, um, along with a lot of other things. But as you can see in this first photo with the steel, several years ago we had someone just do straps on a shipment like that, and then a hard break caused that steel to shift way forward. So um, anytime you're doing that plate steel, you know, an X strap on the front in particular is very important. And chains would highly be recommended with those loads. I'm thinking of like the Bayshore steel loads in particular. But even pallet loads here, someone did a nice job with X strapping and preventing forward movement. One thing to remember is to pad those straps on the X strap as well. You can see, you know, preventing forward movement with the stone is something that we talk about often. Some kind of X pattern on those stones, whether, you know, I know a lot of guys like chains, and if you can chain it, that's great. Not always possible. If you are using the X strap on the stone, make sure you're using a lot of padding. The key is the X strapping to prevent forward movement. In-trip inspections, guys. Either required after within the first 50 miles, and another is required every 3 hours or 150 miles when you're on duty. Also, it's required when you get back to the yard. You're dropping the trailer as part of your post trip. Um, Especially when you go back to that stone. You know, no matter, that's one where, especially if you're using chains, you gotta tighten it every time you stop probably. It's very easy for those to come loose, so it needs to be checked in your en route inspections and when you get done for the day. You're dropping it for the next driver. Too many too many videos being sent my way or Brandon and Jake's way of loose chains, but a lot of that just needs to be tightened up when you get back to the yard. Okay, guys. Hate cleaning up after this stuff. Um, feel like we're doing a little bit better, but we're definitely sliding back again. So, especially with the Conestogas, I've seen it more lately. A lot of stuff in the nose of Conestogas just laying around, extra boards, extra subway wrappers. Um, those need to be cleaned up, and the trailers need to be swept out and ready for the next driver. Um, Side boxes, one side box is for padding, pretty simple. The other side box is for chains, binders, coil racks. That's it. No edge protection, no straps. Pretty simple. Keep them clean. We have this system for a reason. Here's what it should look like. Sorry. Um, Pretty simple. Everything else should be in your truck, or your bungees are hooked to the bottom of your trailer. We'll get to that. Bungees. Okay, this top picture is not an approved method, contrary to some of your beliefs. The reason that we don't do that is it's very difficult to count how many bungees you have there, and also if the bungee breaks, that's holding all of them. You've lost the whole bungee group. Um, I think a lot of you are looping them like that, taking them from your headache rack, then putting them on the bottom of the trailer. The problem with that is we've had several people forget to put them back on the trailer, and we show up, someone takes off, and they don't have bungees for the next load. Had that happen a few times this year. That's pretty frustrating and embarrassing from a customer service standpoint. Also, once these bungees break, do not tie them together. They're done. Once they're broke, they don't need to go in a bad pile. They just go in the trash. Yeah, if you're carrying extra equipment, coming to the end of the year, here's a great time to maybe clean up your boxes, clean up your headache rack. If you've got extra equipment, put it back on the shelf cleanly. We could definitely use some extra straps in some of the terminals. All right, we're getting towards the end here. Um, Equipment assets load. We need photos of the bill lading and freight before departing. Um, Sometimes the bill lading upload is a little delayed, so you might need to text that to the group. Overstrapping versus understrapping, guys. If you're not sure, especially if you're new, overstrap. I know occasionally it might be a little annoying to some people, but if you're not sure, overstrapping is better than under, especially on that stone and some of the more difficult things. Building a bulkhead, don't forget that option. If you got small pipe or bundle steel, build that bulkhead to prevent forward movement. Do not stand next to the trailer during loading and unloading. Someone lost their life a couple years ago in Grand Rapids by doing that. Should always be at the front or the back of the trailer. Scaling, inner four and Rocco loads. Cat scale, a lot of times is best. If you're just doing a Rocco scale, maybe write the weights. Take the extra minute of getting your axle weights, write it on the bill lading. Make sure that next driver knows where we're at. Removing nails from the deck of the trailer helps during winter. Shoveling the trailer for nails in the deck is pretty difficult. Get some. If you see any loose latches or boxes that need to be repaired, now's a good time before winter. Save space. When we ask you to save space, that means as long as the weight works all the way to the nose of the trailer, flush with the tarps behind it. I don't know how many times that's bitten us in the butt. Make sure we're calling the dispatch line, not cell phones when appropriate. If you're trying to have a direct conversation, that's different. But if you got questions about loads or anything, use that dispatch line. Um, Double check if a shipper or receiver or a shipper tells you the load doesn't need to be tarp, and we told you it does. At the end of the day, they might not be the one paying for this stuff, so it's not really their decision. Hours of service management. Most of you are pretty good, but remember we're trying to keep you guys rolling, get you home on time, get you as many miles as we can during the week. Photos, ASR guys, they've helped us out a lot in different ways. Liability, we we had someone try to make a claim. I think we were able to get out of it, but someone tried to make a claim about a month ago and yeah, I didn't take photos and upload it in the ASR. It's so crucial. And more customers are just demanding that. Like, I want photos, and that's fair. This stuff, some of the stuff is pretty expensive. It's fair that they want photos of the load secured. Um, it's also good for training, preventing violations, making sure that we have enough straps. So it's been really helpful for us. Um, Messaging, we're using the ASR messaging when possible. I know some of you maybe don't care for it a lot, but it's helped us a lot with reducing the amount of texts that we're getting as a group. So thank you for doing that. All right, team. Well, thank you for everything, and we had another good week this year, and we'll keep it rolling towards the end of the year. Again, some of you guys are putting up really great numbers, and we appreciate it, and it's going to pay off. Keep it up, guys. Thanks.